It's so good to be back together online. And there's an energy that we have as middle years educators that we really do need each other to make sense of what we do and to move our learning forward for our kids and for ourselves. Here comes our last chunk of goodness. I'm going to talk a little bit around what we've learned and what we know about blended learning, pretty specific, friends, to our context right now with COVID, so that we're thinking about this practice. I'm not going to go into all the blended learning research around when you design a blended learning course. I'm going to talk about us now with our middle years kids. So here are some guidelines developed across, I have the privilege of working with 7 inquiry groups of middle years educators across the Northwest Territories and British Columbia right now. So these are what we've been developing together. The first is that anchor lessons are really critical. So I saw on Twitter a couple folks who teach online full-time all the time. And we know that from that work, as well as those of us who have never taught online until 10 weeks ago. The idea of an anchor lesson where you introduce a concept and a practice, and then kids get to practice with purpose for 3 or 4 more days using that thing. We need to move away from this idea of, in any classroom, but particularly in blended learning, we need to say, here's an anchor thing that I'm teaching you, and then have opportunities to practice and apply that. We also know that practice with purpose is critical. And so we don't want to send kids off to do something without modeling what that is, and then having chances to use that in whatever kind of learning that they're doing. I talked about this at the beginning in chunk 1, that conferencing and formative assessment are critical. Kids need a chance to check in with you and to hear back from you something that they're doing well, and get 1 or 2 goals to work on. The best is if they help set those goals versus being told those goals by you, so that the educator's in conversation with the kid. We know this, but I'm just going to reinforce this, particularly as we think about the next 5 weeks. Keep literacy and numeracy at the fore. And by that, I mean reading and writing and talking about things that are important. This is our chance in the next 5 weeks to give kids that nice little boost. And then those practices will carry them again. But let's just really think about what could be something engaging, meaningful, that kids could be thinking about, talking about, exploring. Get outside. Hashtag get outside. With kids, without kids, kids in groups, kids on their own, whatever is possible to be doing something, but that's purposeful. I'll walk to this place to see this, to collect that, to document something. And I'll show you a couple examples of folks that are doing that kind of work. I just want to give another plug for passion projects and inquiry. No matter where kids are, we can help them have a structure to work within. But when Shelley talked about giving kids a chance to share what they have, it's also a chance for them to develop and figure something out. And so part of our job with the anchor lesson is to set that up, but then to give them opportunities to explore something. One of the most important things that we can be doing is helping kids dig deeper. So we're really thinking about, here's something we started with, now do something more with that, try that again. So rather than giving them something new to do, give them something deeper to do with something we've explored. I've already mentioned the importance of us doing a think aloud, not in every lesson, but in that anchor lesson. So they get a chance to see what that looks like. If you look to the other side of the screen for a moment, my friends, I just want to reinforce the importance and the centrality of embedding social emotional learning in everything we do for middle years kids. Everything that happens in learning is tied to emotion for this age group and identity. And so kids need to be able to check in and say, how am I doing? They need a chance for self-reflection, and they do need a chance for peer connection, even in online learning. And that's why we went to small groups, just as we did. And then really, we're nurturing self-regulated. This is the best time, isn't it, to nurture self-regulated learning? Set a goal for yourself. Make a plan. When do we give kids a chance to make a plan? Try something out, and then reflect and say, how did it go? These last 2 points, I just want to note, we should never be expecting all kids to engage in everything we do. They're not all the same kid, but we can say, what did you do? What did you learn? And what's next for you? And the last one, I'll just note that choice is really the heart of middle years pedagogy, whether it's face-to-face or online or both. And I've seen some incredible tic-tac-toe boards, friends, where you choose one thing from each column this week. And that first column are things you can do pretty quickly. That second column is some kind of practice. And that third column is really something where you dig deep. But choice means engagement, and especially in the middle years. I've been embedding liberating structures today. Did you notice? We had the mad tea or mad hot lemon water, and we had conversation cafe. Here are some other liberating structures that you can embed into synchronous online learning. All online learning does not need to be synchronous, but there should be that anchor opportunity at least once a week. And so you can go online, and in the earlier slides, there's a link to go to those more of these liberating structures if you're interested. I'm going to show you some examples from classrooms now, folks. By classrooms, I mean our classrooms just got bigger, didn't they? The world is the classroom. So this comes from Melissa Burdock in SD67, and she talked about how, you probably saw this on her Twitter post her very first week out, that maybe kids didn't all submit their work-the assignments, but they all showed up for Circle. And so she starts the week with Circle, and they bring an artifact to share, and she ends the week with Circle. And so she ensures that kids feel not just safe, but connected and part of a community, and the learning that happens within those brackets. You remember in the first webinar when I shared her example of their class charter? So they looked at their charter when they went online, and so now how can we use this charter while we're learning distantly? And so she had the kids look back at our charter and say, what word is really important that we need to keep while we're learning online? And so that bridged, right, that classroom social emotional learning to say it can happen and should happen anywhere, and kids need an opportunity to be part of, analyzing it, creating it, and reflecting on it. Then she did heart maps with her kids, people. This comes from Georgia Hurd and Nancy Atwell and Lucy Calkins. And this is a beautiful example of what Shelley was talking about, where in a heart map, you model for kids all the things that are important to you, people, places, and experiences, and kids write down their own important people, places, and experiences. And so all the majority of the language arts writing that they've been doing has been writing something from their heart map. So then they're using their funds of knowledge, and then she can teach them mini lessons about approaches to writing, but they're bringing themselves into their writing. They also have a wonder of the week. And so 1 week was courage. And so they have this overarching question. And then in their home learning, they had to do something related to what that theme of the week was. Adriana Cullen, that one's for you, my friend, right? Because that empowers those kids to say, what could I do around that topic? Oh, thank you to Melissa. This example comes from SD74. Woo! Yay, Gold Trail. This is an example of passion projects. And here's the team. So everyone in the school took part in saying what passion projects could we do, and different educators, including educational assistants and administrators, were part of teams that supported these passion projects. So kids could sign up for one or more. Can you see this, everybody? Isn't that terrific? I'll tweet it out again after. But kids chose one or more passion projects to work on, to learn about something, to go deeper. And then they had a mentor supporting them with that passion project with regular meets to get some support as needed and to be taught an anchor lesson. Then they posted evidence of their learning on the school Facebook page. They really found that it tapped into not just kids' passions, but teachers' passions too. And it built community remotely because you're like, I'm part of the cooking group. And so it allowed you to have some kind of identity for a time with a group of people. And it allowed them to embed their local ways of knowing, their local indigenous ways of knowing into the things that they took up. There are some of the connections and springboards. And what they noticed that there were high levels of family engagement because kids were choosing, and they, with their parents, could choose what they were doing. It connected kids across grades. And it made some partnerships in the community in the school that weren't there before. And there was lots of learning that connected to the land because they designed those passion opportunities. Super exciting. In fact, the birdhouse group was so engaged that they think they've probably built enough birdhouses for every western bluebird in the southern interior. So it just took fire, right? Because you're part of that community, making a difference, having something to do. Remember that anchor lessons were important, but so is being part of a community and then having the freedom to have that choice and work on things. This example comes from Eagle Mountain Middle in SD 43, Coquitlam, friends. And this is the wolf team. Their school is organized by animals. If an orca is an animal, it is, yes. And so this is on the wolf team. Thanks to Jen and Andrea for pulling this together. They were going to be doing literature circles, but of course they don't have the kids coming together in the same way. So instead, they said to the kids, choose one of the novels, or if you can't get a copy of the book, any novel you want. And so they engaged them in the process with an overarching question: how do stories help our identities evolve and grow? So they were able to support that notion of identity. Kids choose their book, and they're part of this process in terms of engaging, and they have a weekly thinking activity. So they're reading and have a thinking task. What's also cool is you can change books anytime. Then, after the first novel, then they could choose another text. And what this COVID online learning opportunity opened up the door for was, why does it need to be another novel? Why couldn't it just be another text of any kind that they use the same process with that other text? And so they could read a nonfiction article or a spoken word piece or watch a piece of media, but then they connected this new piece of text to the original piece of text they were looking at using the overarching inquiry. Still kind of this weekly focus over the same overall question for the unit. In both cases, choice was built in. And then they're now answering, how does reading about another person's story help me understand others and or myself better? And so part of this identity work is not just seeing yourself in a book, but it's also recognizing that there is diversity and coming to value diversity. And so as we know, this kind of work is not just identity work, but it's literacy work. You're doing both together, but for middle years learners, we need to embed and connect those pieces. This comes from Chinook McLean. Chinook teaches grades 7 and 8 at Eagle River Secondary in SD, which is in the Shuswap. And so what she's done with her kids is they're becoming mindful naturalists. And so kids have a weekly practice or experience of living inquiry or artography or engaging with Indigenous knowledge where they have to do something outside that's guided and focused. There's an anchor lesson that Chinook sets up for them so they know what they're working within. And then during the week, they get a chance to do something that reinforces or practices or uses that anchor lesson. So what they were taught was how to write a field note. So that was the anchor thing. I'm going to teach you how to write a field note, and then they're going to go out and have an experience to write it. She shared an exemplar with them. So here's what her field notes looks like. The time, how you do it, how you model it, how you take it, what you're looking for, what you need because you're planning. And then they went out and had the kids at the plan and say, so now I'm going to go out and what am I going to look at to do a field note? She had a shared template that kids could use or use something else if they want, but they had something to work within, right? A schema. And, well, there's the blank example. See how she encouraged them, you could do some research ahead. Here are some sources that could help you figure things out. And she also set them up to say, here are some examples of things that you might see that are local in your context. And she just gave them just enough information that they were familiar with what they might see. So then they're using the knowledge on their walk and talking about it in their field note. There's a couple of these, and then I just want to highlight, oh, one more. She did Flora Bingo. Come on, people. Flora Bingo, hashtag that and get it out. So so she went out for a walk and saw what she could find. And then she made bingo for the kids to say, see what you might find on your walk. So that helped build their knowledge in context related to their field notes. Here's an example of Bailey's field note about what she saw and what she noticed and what she found. And then you ready for it? Bailey made Flora Bingo of her own from her own walk. So it took one anchor lesson a week from Chinook, and then the kids were doing things with that over the course of the week. But we need to model what that looks like, give kids a try, give them an exemplar, give them feedback along the journey, and give them opportunities to show what they know. Oh, peeps in the house, how you doing? Okay? I'm right on time. Oh, schneller. It means fastest in German, in case you're wondering, everyone. Like drinking from a fire hose. Okay, a couple things that are in our wheelhouses, everybody, that we just need to be thinking about pulling out in this time of blended learning, right? How can we give kids tools that are not black and white, fill in the worksheet, but allow them to do that critical thinking, that wondering, that hypothesizing, right, work. And so we know the 3-column journal, or here's the thing we've been learning about, but why is that important? And then what could we do with that? We could be embedding these frames into our learning over time. Or here's my favorite, recently I used, was the top 10. Of course, the kids had no idea who David Letterman was, so that was a little bit sad for me. But I explained what the cool top 10 list was. But it's a chance for kids to take information that they've been engaging and chunk it and put it together and do that thinking work that their brains want and need. And my favorite, some of you know this from me already, is the postcard. If we're going to get engaged in some blended learning and recognize the openness and the freedom that kids can have, where's a way for them to report back to us what they've been learning, like the 3-column, like the top 10 or the 3-column, in this case, the postcard, a chance to say, dear Mr. Schnellert, you will not believe what I found today. And they tell us about their learning, but it makes it personal and relational in their voice to an audience, in this case, which is me, but allows them to share what they want to share about their learning. And that, my friends, is my super fast version of what might we be thinking about in this blended learning time. If you've got kids who are coming to school 1 day a week, that 1 day a week could be our anchor day. But remember that you will have some kids who are not coming to school that 1 day a week, and they also need that anchor lesson. So it's really this opportunity to make sure that we're connecting our communities. And if you think back to my Speedy example in the first chunk from Selkirk Secondary that Carson Loftsgaard shared with us, they're going to have a check-in circle, but the online kids and the face-to-face kids are all going to be part of the same circle check-in to ensure that we're maintaining and developing that community. I know this was not the series that we thought we would have this year, but maybe it was better, because middle years learning is less a planned experience and more an emergent experience. You follow the kids that you have and you make something for them based on who you have. I know that the work that you've done this year was not just exciting, but there's a little bit of sadness right now in terms of I wanted to do this, but if we can model for our kids a practice of letting go and focusing on what's important, they too can let go of some of what they hoped would happen this year and to celebrate what's happening. We need to finish these last 4 weeks with a sense of hope. But part of being hopeful is also being okay to let go. And kids need that chance to check in and share what's going well, what's tough, and then move forward in terms of some kind of shared experience that says, we couldn't be doing this without you, and what an opportunity to figure something out, kids. So they come back in the fall, having had some kind of rich experience in June, which is like, oh, look what we did, even despite COVID, because we help frame the experience for our kids so that they have healthy identity development, recognizing the complexities that we're facing right now, not pretending it's not there, but also making it okay to be learners who are connected to each other around a few important, engaging things. And perhaps lastly, no one can know what they know except for them. Our job is not to fill them up. Our job is to help them bloom. And so offer them some experiences, but don't get worried about what you didn't cover right now. Think about a success story that each kid can have this June where they can talk about something they learned, something they got better about, and hopefully something they could talk and read and write about over this next little while. I want to thank Shelley for joining us today. Wasn't that fun? Oh my goodness. For those of you who don't know, I actually taught Shelley in grade 8 and grade 9. Yep, I'm here to tell the tale. She's got a few tales to tell about me, but she doesn't have the mic right now. Whew.
I sure do.
Ooh. You can find the archives of the first 2 series that we did this year on the ST61 website. And as soon as these are ready, they'll also be posted on the SD61 website. I'm sure David's going to have a great time editing our excitement. Please continue to be connected, to share on Twitter, to be part of this community. And we're delighted that SD61 would like to host this again next year. Word on the street is SD62 is going to partner with SD61 this coming year. But our idea is to have a community together where we as middle years educators recognize the developmental uniqueness of our kids, that learning and design and pedagogy needs to be exploratory, engaging, interdisciplinary, and most importantly, developmentally nurturing, both in terms of neuro ability, but also identity, and the funds of knowledge that kids bring need to be celebrated and nurtured so that they can build their own identities. Thank you to Shelley for joining us. Thank you to Tammy and Dave and Denise, our team, who have planned with us and tried to rein us in. And most importantly, thank you to all of you for taking care and nurturing our middle years learners. They are a very special group, and they only deserve the most care and nurture we can give them, because 5 more weeks and we can say, you're on your way. Can't wait to see what you bring next year. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great evening.